Hey guys, Micah from the CCL. Hey, I want to talk to you today about reflective listening. Reflective listening is a listening skill that's been really helpful to me. Probably nothing in my ministry experience has really kind of leveled up my game quite as much as learning to be a better listener with the people I'm trying to minister to. And so I know when I say it and when we start talking about it, you're going to think, this is this weird namby-pamby, hippy-dippy stuff. And I get it, but I'm telling you, this works. It's helpful. It helps my marriage. It helps my parenting. It helps my relationship with coworkers, and it helps me a lot in ministry. So I just want to teach you this skill, and then we'll have a chance to practice it together. All right? So what is reflective listening? Well, it's listening beyond the words is basically the deal. And we listen beyond the words and we reflect back to the person what we hear them saying. You might think that's stupid. We don't need to do that. And the reason that I think a lot of us feel that way is because we think we're pretty smart people and we understand what other people are saying when they say it. And that's a good, it's good to think that we can be understood or that we can understand other people. But there's a story in Mark, where very beginning of Mark 2, where Jesus is just starting to do miracles and people hear about him and they're like, man, this is amazing. And there's this guy that's paralyzed and his friends bring him to Jesus. And you guys know this story. They can't get in. They go up on the roof. They let him down. And Jesus says to the man, hey, your sins are forgiven. And then it says the Pharisees were there and they said, man, who does he think he is? They didn't say it. They thought it. And Jesus, it says, knew in his heart what they were thinking. And so he addressed them. Why do you're thinking this? Well, I think a lot of us want to be like Jesus in a lot of ways, but this is a way that we probably are not going to be as like Jesus as we think we are, which is to know what someone else is thinking when they say it or when they say something or interact with us. And so, we assume that we know what people are talking about when they're talking, and that's a good assumption to make because if you can't assume that at some level, you can't talk about anything at all. But in high value conversations, in conversations that are particularly intense, that are particularly meaningful, there's actually a really high value in kind of getting a feedback loop going, which is what we do when we talk about reflective listening. All right. The purpose of reflective listening is to help make sure that what you're saying and what I'm hearing are the same thing. I can tell you a million different stories where someone said something, I assumed in my head what they meant by that, and then I acted off of my assumption, and then it went sideways. You probably have some stories that you can think of for yourself, and you can ponder that for yourself and see if you can think of some stories. But when we practice reflective listening, there's kind of three things that we get out of that. We get more trust. Just consistently, I find that when I practice reflective listening with somebody, I get more trust, I get more clarity with them, and I get less conflict. So that's a trifecta that I want to be a part of. So how do we practice reflective listening? It ain't complicated, all right? It's not hard. Basically, 3 steps to reflective listening. The first step is listen. Right? I know you're like, man, I want my money back for watching this video, but the first step in reflective listening is just to listen. And by that, what I mean is I want you to listen intentionally, listen, kind of focus on listening. Don't be distracted. Put your phone down, pause the TV, turn off the music, do what you got to do. I'm listening to you tell me something. So if I'm reflectively listening, the first thing I'm doing is I'm listening very carefully to hear what you're really saying. But then in addition to that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reflect, right? I'm going to reflect. And so if you said to me, hey, I'm really frustrated about the Bengals. The Bengals are my local team. I don't know what your local team is, but man, I'm just so mad about the Bengals. I might think, okay, he's mad about the Bengals, but why is he mad about the Bengals? What about that? I don't know actually why he's mad about the Bengals, other than our defensive line is terrible, and that's a whole other thing. But maybe he's mad about the Bengals because sports betting is becoming a bigger thing, and he just lost a bunch of money. Maybe he's mad about the Bengals because he bought tickets, showed up, went to the game, and then had a bad experience. Maybe he's mad about the Bengals because he and his his dad or his grandpa used to watch the Bengals together, and that's a memory, and he remembers what that was like to win. Maybe he just likes the Bengals. Like you don't know, because the words on the page, or if we had a transcript, that's not enough information to really know what is it. And so it's worth it to echo back and say, man, that sounds really frustrating. Or yeah, I feel the same way. What is it specifically about the Bengals that are frustrating you now? Or what? Hey, what? Somebody says to me, "I'm mad about the Bengals." Yeah, man, me too. What part's most frustrating for you? That's a question. And it kind of goes to the third piece, which is tell me more. Man, it sounds like it's really frustrating. I get it. What about that is frustrating? So the 3 steps: listen actively, reflect back, tell me more. Those are kind of our 3 steps. And let me tell you why this is important. And we're going to get into this some next week when we talk about praying for people. But I have just made assumptions a lot of times that I know what the other person's talking about, and that I respond to what I think I know, right? And so a number of times, and we'll talk about this more next week, but when I've been praying for people, they'll say, "Oh, I really want you to pray for this thing." And, I need prayer. My mom is very sick. And I've thought, oh, okay, we're going to pray. I know what we're praying for. We're praying for her healing. We're praying for this. And the number of times that I've said in that kind of a situation, "Hey, great, we'll pray that your mom is healed." And they're like, "Well, yeah, I do want her to be healed, but actually the issue is that she's taking care of my dad." Or, "Oh, actually the issue is that," I've had this happen on a couple times. They're like, "No, we're not praying for her to heal. She's 90x years old, and she is ready to go home and be with her maker. We're just praying that the Lord would take her." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know I was praying for that," right? Tons of scenarios like that. And so this kind of 3-part process of listen actively. I'm going to get rid of this real quick. Listen actively. It's going the wrong way, isn't it? All right. Bend it down so it looks level to you. Listen actively, reflect back, and tell me more. The ability to do these 3 steps anytime I'm listening to somebody changes my ability to minister to them well, right? If I can do this well, if I can, I go and I visit somebody in the hospital. "Hey, how are you doing today? How'd everything go?" "Oh, I went this and this and this and this. Man, I had this guy come in. I had this guy come in. This different nurse came in 3 times. I'm supposed to see a specialist. Wow, that seems like a lot. How, it seems like what you're telling me is that you've got a lot of stuff going on. How's that going for you? How are you feeling about it?" To be able to listen, reflect, and paraphrase back, and then go for more information lets them feel heard, makes them feel heard in a way that just saying, "Wow, bet that's really hard. Let me pray for you." That it doesn't accomplish the same thing. All right. The 2 major mistakes we can make when we're doing reflective listening. The first major mistake that we make is we just give advice too soon. I do this all the time. "Oh, well, the problem, what you need to do is you need to tell the doctor this," or "What you need to do with, you're talking to this other, what you need to do is this." We just get into advice-giving mode too soon. Now, I'm not anti-advice. I'm not saying you can't ever give advice. I'm just saying don't go there quite yet. Listen very, very clearly. Make sure that you understand the situation before you give the advice. And the other mistake that I've made many times is I hear somebody telling me something. They're like, "Oh, man, it's really hard. We just found out that my sister has cancer." And I go, "Oh, yeah, man, I totally identify with that. My sister had cancer." And so which is true. My sister had cancer when I was younger. She's healed now. But when when you're trying to share something with me, or you're trying to talk about your day, and I make it about myself, it's like, man, I thought I was trying to tell you something, and all you want to do is talk about yourself. Both of those mistakes really caused us problems. So, in summary, reflective listening helps us build connections. It helps us foster understanding, and basically it just helps people feel understood, right? It helps them be seen and heard. And so I just encourage you generally speaking, and also in the exercise that we're going to do, try this out in your daily conversations. What does it look like to do this well? If you can learn this skill, I promise you, it will change the way your relationships work. The ability to master reflective listening and use it consistently, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's at the church, whether it's with your family, whatever it is, I'm telling you, this is like a relational superpower, and it's going to help you, especially as you're trying to minister to people in your church. All right, thanks, guys. Bye.